Hello, homies. Today we hang out with Stasia Johnson Steinhagen, the board chair of the Northwestern Academy of Homeopathy. It is so wonderful to see homeopathy going through a revolution right now with people worldwide embracing this wonderful natural medicine. Along with that, though, it's very important that we make sure that when people are self-prescribing the remedies at home, that they do so safely. And that is just one of the topics we will be delving into today, and one that I feel is very important to ensure that we stay within our scope of practice and we know when it's time to ask for professional help. Stasia also shares with us about the programs available at the Northwestern Academy of Homeopathy. And for more information, visit www.homeopathictraining.org. Enjoy the episode.
Welcome to the Homeopathy Hangout, where we discuss all things homeopathy from around the world. And now my mum and your host, Eugenie Kruger.
Hello, homies, and a very warm welcome to Homeopathy Hangout. Today, we get to chat with homeopath and board chair of the Northwestern Academy of Homeopathy, the lovely Stasia Johnson Steinhagen. I hope I said that all right. Welcome to the show, Stasia.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's lovely to have you on. Can you tell our listeners, we always kick off the show with the same question. It's my favorite, is how were you first introduced to homeopathy?
I love that question. Yeah. Through my children, of course. I don't know. I mean, who wasn't? Maybe their dog or their cat. Some people on their own, and those people amaze me. Like so many people, I needed solutions for my children, and I had somebody in we went to Waldorf school. The kids, our kids were in Waldorf school, and there was a publication that came out for the school, of course, every month, and in the back were classifieds, and there was a homeopath saying, "Hey, I do these, acute care home classes, teach you how to do a little bit of homeopathy and learn about it." And she became our homeopath. I went to the class, of course. I'm a geek, and I thought this will be fun. And I was just amazed with the results. The results were, I couldn't deny it. And really through things happening for my children, things happening for my husband, who was, a denier, like this isn't real, right? But then he got really sick once and it turned him in 20 minutes. Same thing with the dog, $500, the ER. And then the next day, the homeopath says, well, try this. 20 minutes later, wish I hadn't spent the money and wish the dog hadn't suffered. So it's just those kinds of experiences. And I said, I've always wanted to be a doctor, but not really, because I don't feel I can really get to do great work. Long story short, I applied for school.
Oh, that is really cool. And yeah, you're so right. The amount of money was saved, especially pets from surgeries. I had a client the other day who, we have the grass seeds often get in under the doggy's nails, and then they end up getting abscesses and thousands of dollars for the operations. And so this client actually had the operation done. And then lo and behold, about 6 months or a year later, same thing happened. And she used homeopathy and healed beautifully. So she was not impressed that she spent all those thousands the first time, but also grateful that she learned about homeopathy. And you also do other healing modalities. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. I think because I really always wanted to be and I said a doctor, but really a naturopath. I had the pleasure when I was young of working with Bill Mitchell, who is one of the founders of Bastyr College. And he was our family's naturopath ever so briefly. I really only saw him a couple times because I only needed to see him a couple times because he was so helpful to me. And I thought, well, I want to do that. But then I moved away from Seattle and away from him and ended up here in Minnesota. And so when these things happened for my children, my husband and my dog and myself, somebody said, why don't you just be a homeopath? And I'm like, just be a homeopath? Who wants to, I don't want to just be a homeopath. That seems sort of limiting because I didn't understand.
Yeah.
I thought, no, I want to be a naturopath, but there wasn't any place to study here. I would have had to move my family and everything. So here's what happened. I decided then to sit in on the Northwestern Academy of Homeopathy's class. They let me audit a portion of their course, like their medical sciences course. So I audited that for a year, watched how they taught, watched how the students enjoyed it. And I took a year, because I'm slow, to decide that this was enough. I really understood after a while that homeopathy was a whole system of medicine. But at the same time, I wanted a little more. So I went to St. Catherine University at the same time and concurrently did a degree, got my master's degree in holistic health studies, which is more research focused, is more broad spectrum, like here are all the modalities that are the major modalities, learn about them, learn how to research them, learn how to conduct research, publish, that kind of stuff. So I took a dual track, which was really satisfying to me. And in that process, I focused in, they had a herbology program. So I don't consider myself a good herbologist, a great herbologist. I consider myself like a better than lay person.
Yeah.
But I always tell people I can do the basics and then I'm going to send you to some of our colleagues around here who are really good at it. Just like I consider myself now a specialist in homeopathy. We have specialists in herbology who are awesome, but that's, yeah. And I am a researcher, so I do bring that aspect to my work, and I'm really invested in integrative health. So that's my perspective.
That's really cool. So did you do the research before you did the degree in holistic health studies, or do you mean that's where the research component came from?
Yeah, as part of the master's, they actually design and conduct research. Those graduate students is kind of unique. I mean, almost at a doctoral level. And then I really enjoyed it. So I joined some professor teams and continued on with research. And I now teach the research track. I have in the past taught it for like 3 years. And now I'm sitting in right now to replace someone on sabbatical, teaching it again. I love it in that same graduate program.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And do you do much research on homeopathy, or is it more in the other fields of natural medicine?
People do, and certainly the school, we do provings, and then we're always developing that part of the school, but that's separate and that isn't a part of what I personally have done in terms of research. I've done most of my research on integrative medicine and also on nutrition and sports medicine.
Wow. And I know what you said about you've done the herbs side of things, but you might not necessarily be an expert in the field. But like I started out studying naturopathy, and that's how I discovered homeopathy. I didn't even know what homeopathy was. Yeah. And I had no interest in, like, I'd heard the word before, but I never knew what it was. And then I went to go study it, and I was like, oh my gosh, like the penny just dropped for me. And luckily that was 2 years before I had my kids. So got to have this beautiful pregnancy, unmedicated birth. Kids are 11 and 8. They've never needed any drugs in their life, which is really cool. Oh, yeah. So that was just luck. That was pure luck. And then I also worked in health shops for a few years. And so you get to learn a lot of the herbs and supplements and things like that. And then you understand that better as a homeopath, how you would use that in homeopathic potency. For example, like ginkgo or ashwagandha or whatever, I often use those in low potency homeopathic form. So, like X or something like that, because I understand, got the background in the herbs and the supplements, and then it really translates really nicely into homeopathy as well. So
it really does. I'm really glad you brought that out. One of my favorite books, and I use it when I teach at the school, is William Mitchell's books, because he's a naturopath. And of course, the naturopaths learn, I say homeopathy light, chiro light, acupuncture light, right? So they're like the GPs of the natural world, I always say. Some of them take it really deep into the woods with any one of those. But one of my favorite books is called Plant Medicine by William Mitchell. Mm-hmm. And he does just what you're saying. He'll take that herbal understanding, the chemical understanding, and the homeopathic understanding, and he'll approach that natural medicine from all these different perspectives and how you can use it in all the different ways. And I almost always incorporate his work into my lectures on homeopathy, because it helps homeopaths start to understand what that intersection is. I always said that Venn diagram between the molecular source, the biomedical source, and then the energetic homeopathic preparation. So cool.
It's so cool. And the more research that's done on phytochemicals and plants, the more we can all integrate in a way, which is really exciting. So Plant Medicine, William Mitchell, I'll definitely go and look that book up. I don't think I've heard of it before. So you're not in Seattle anymore?
No. Nope, not in Seattle anymore.
I've been at Bastyr University is there, isn't it?
That's where Bastyr is, and he's one of the co-founders of it. Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I came all the way to New Zealand once when I was studying to be a naturopath, and I came to do a talk at our college. It was really cool.
You went to do a talk at Bastyr?
No, he came. Oh no, what was this? Pizzorno was his surname. To New Zealand. That was really cool. Sorry, I'm going off track. So talk to us.
No, I like it.
Talk to us a bit about Northwestern. So there's been guests on the show I've said to you that have mentioned that they studied there. It's been mentioned a few times. I don't know too much about the school. So can you tell us a little bit about how it started, how long it's been around, what courses do you offer, how does it run?
Sure. The Northwestern Academy of Homeopathy has been called that, I think, since the very beginning, was founded by Val O'Hanion and Eric Summerman 28 years ago. And really it happened because they were both here practicing, had been trained elsewhere in classical homeopathy, very Hahnemannian, NTN homeopathy. And their feeling at the time was, we need some peers. Like, we need people to refer to. We should start a school. And so they did. And they formalized their, what was, of course, study group and peer support group and casework group, as many people do, around the world who don't have schools. And they over time brought in Lori Dack, who is a wonderful practitioner from Vancouver, BC. She joined their ranks, and then teachers have joined them periodically, some shorter term or longer term, to become part of what has become a rounded out group of adjunct and core practitioners. Now, those two have just recently, in the past couple of years, handed the reins over, and actually the organization even over, to kind of be let the founder part of it. They're advisors now to the organization, but the curriculum lives on. And so over those 28 years, what they created was, after trying lots of different things, a 4-year program that is part-time. It is continuous. It isn't like you can sit in on one class and have another discrete class and another discrete class. The only part and parcel of this 4-year program that you can divide up is clinic and the didactic. So there's 2 years of didactic philosophy, materia medica, practice management, beginning to understand casework and view cases and watch clients get the professors take cases and whatnot. Then they gently move into a clinical setting for the final 2 years. So we do have people join us from around the world for clinic, who've come from other places where they've had some solid didactic, and we can see that they have the background necessary. Then we can apply that background if it meets, because we are accredited by ACHINA. So if it can meet that, then they can join us for clinic for the final 2 years. And so that's the structure of the program. It's primarily weekend work. 1 week, people come 1 weekend a month it's longer than a weekend, like 3 days over the weekend and full days. And then they have a couple webinars in the evening. So it's really easy. Like usually you were saying, your kids are they're preteens now, I think you said.
Yes, yeah. You're getting lots of those preteen hormones coming through.
Yeah. So we have a lot of people who have kids coming to the program, some people with full-time jobs and kids coming to the program. So we try to meet that need by having it Friday, Saturday, Sunday, once a month. And then in the evenings, and then they do self-study during that time, or their homework. They don't do self-study. They do their homework and whatnot for 4 years.
Well, actually, my training in New Zealand was similar as well. It was also once a month.
Was it really?
Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And then we had you go home with loads of extra information, also online platform where there's discussions, there's homework, there's more work. So it's not just like that one weekend, but it was also over 4 years. And then we also started our clinical training in year 3. So you got to do it from year 3 and 4. So it actually sounds quite similar to the
It's similar, yeah.
So can people do it completely online? So if they're not able to attend those weekends?
Yes. So we have people joining us from all over the world online, and then we have people who come in person, and we have people who do both. And our faculty is mostly here, but some online. So each class is offered fully hybrid. So that means it's all synchronous. Some people will be in a classroom, and they'll be joined by people on a big screen live. And it's that way all the time. And that has been sort of a sweet spot. We've been doing that way before COVID. We've been doing it. It was sort of a brainstorm, I think, of Val and Lori's and Chris Nelson, who was our previous program director. They felt the need, they saw the need, and they created this like 8, 9, maybe 10 years ago. We've been doing hybrid a long time, and it's really taken off, I will say, though, in the last 5 years. So we do have people coming from all over the world, as long as they can manage the time difference, because we do operate in Central Time.
Is there something that you feel sets Northwest apart from other schools? Like we've had a few colleges on here, and I cannot tell you how many emails I get of listeners emailing me saying, what school do you recommend? And I always say to them, go and listen to all the episodes, see which one you resonate with, email them. Like you cannot ask me like which
Yeah.
school to recommend, because it depends on what your style is, what your personality is, how you like to learn. So for somebody listening to this episode, which, years from now I'll still be referring to, what would you say to them? What's special about Northwestern Academy?
I'm going to tell you what I hear, because we do get to have people who come to us from other schools. We get that experience. And there is the fact that there's a brick and mortar still. Some schools don't offer that anymore or never did. That's one part. The clinical training is probably the thing that people speak the most highly of and the most uniquely of, having 2 full years to really, because it isn't about content. You can only, and the length. So the 4 years and the 2 years of clinical I think are unique beyond the brick and mortar, and the fact that you can see people online and meet people around the world, but still be in a classroom with your local people if you live here, if you're lucky to live here, I guess, in that regard. But I don't think our people who don't live here don't feel any differently. They just don't. Some of the times they actually almost synergistically feed off of the fact that there's a bit of a local feeling on the call, on the Zoom. But in any case, that homeopathy takes time. There isn't, and that's what I think the 28 years after trying it in the 3, trying it with less clinic, trying people coming in and out of the program, the part that has really stuck is that there's only so much change a person can go through in a certain amount of time. And there is a requisite transformation in the understanding of a student from beginning to end in order to apprentice this information. And there isn't a way to do it through self-study that is the same, that is in online training, that doesn't have clinical, and that it is that overarching process and the amount of cases and the amount of time that people are then able to walk out the door and step into practice. And then we have a pretty strong mentorship program. Some people call it internship or externships or whatever you want to call it, but all different words for the same thing, where you're in clinic, but now you're, in addition to that, you're doing work in the community with the supervisor, getting your 10, 12, 15 cases ready so that you're really ready to just go right into our community clinic or somebody else's community clinic, wherever you are in the world, and begin practice on your own.
I am really glad to hear you say that, because I initially was enrolled in a college, which was a 3-year degree program. But then because they didn't have that many people, that was only 3 of us that wanted to take the homeopathy pathway. So they closed that off and they said, you have to finish this year. This was at the end of my 2nd year. They said, you have to do full time next year if you want to get this degree in homeopathy. And I'm like, well, I've got a newborn baby. I can't do that. And so in that search, I found the college which I ended up finishing, which was the weekends over 4 years. And I am so glad I had that extra year, because I really agree with you. You need that time to integrate that information. There was somebody else who was at this 4-year college that I was as well, but she fast-tracked all the information into 2 years. And the interesting thing is that the 2 that finished that 3-year program, none of them are practicing homeopaths.
Yeah.
They have gone more towards the naturopathic side because there was some of that teaching as well. And the other one who fast-tracked her program, she was constantly asking me questions. And I'm like, you should be knowing this stuff. So I don't feel you can fast-track homeopathy. And maybe it's because I did the 4 years. So I think like everyone should take their time. I'm biased. But I really do think that there could possibly be a difference. I didn't know anything about homeopathy when I started. So I think somebody else who maybe I'm thinking of my clients, for example, who are studying homeopathy now. Many of them have walked this path with me for a couple of years. They're really good home prescribers, and then they go into it. Whereas I never been to a homeopath. I never started homeopathy. So maybe that's where it's different for me, that I really needed those 4 years. But a lot of like my patients that are now studying to be homeopaths, they have such solid groundwork. I feel like they are almost now where I was in my 2nd year. So maybe that's the difference. I'm just thinking out loud here.
No, we're thinking along with you. The school's thinking along with you in that way. And now there are so many, with so much online learning, and one of the topics that I had mentioned was of interest to me as we talk about it in the school and in leadership a lot, is the populism movement in the world, right? Probably stems very much from this easy access to information, which is incredible. So everybody being empowered through the internet, the widely available access to videos, to YouTubes, to just do it yourself, everything, which has so much benefit. And like we were just saying, that only gets you so far. There's a dynamis in homeopathy, and there's a dynamis in learning. It is an apprenticeship. In order to really practice it, I think to really learn it in a fulsome way, we need that feedback. We need a dynamic relationship. We need something apart from ourselves. We need that open space that happens between two entities where something can develop. And if I do it by myself, I don't get that. And if I do it with a protocol, I don't get that. If I do it with a book, I don't get that. And I think that is the place for homeopathic professional education that moves us beyond the populism and home prescribing, which I'm fully supportive of. I don't think most of us would be here or be in school if it wasn't for that, right? Very few of us stumble into the homeopathy office like, hey, can you help me? It's more because there's been some kind of a struggle or introduction or something that's been populist in that way. So one of the things we're thinking about, as you were saying, is how do we then help those people who have started that way? Is there a way to expedite their movement through a 4-year program where they join us a little bit along the way and maybe have a 3-year program or an expedited option that gets them to clinic so that we make sure they have that philosophical addition, it's very important to have the philosophy underpinnings, we think, to have the classical underpinnings. So you can't really skip that. And a lot of times that is what is missing in the online learning or do-it-yourself or even protocol prescribing. It might have a philosophy, but not having that classical, the Hahnemannian underpinning. I think if Schulten was sitting here and Sankaran was sitting here, anyone would say, you must understand that. And that's a presumption of understanding. But it is not in populist approach. And I think if we forget about that, we're going to have some unfortunate and possibly problematic outcomes from errant use of homeopathy, remedies being misapplied. And I do worry about that.
Yep, I do worry about a little bit as well.
Yeah.
Luckily, that happening is very small.
Yes.
But it does happen. And we these days have, I don't know, I couldn't say, but I would say some of the most sensitive population we've ever had because of people's high toxic load that they're born with and then just gets multiplied from there. So if you give them something as safe and gentle and effective as a homeopathy, it can trigger like a healing response, which can be quite severe for some people. So if you're home prescribing those for a lot of those things, I'm thinking mold toxicity because it's such a big thing for me at the moment. If you have a really high toxic load or chronic fatigue and you go online and you try to self-prescribe something like maybe aspergillus as a homeopathic remedy and suddenly have this huge detox reaction, but you haven't learned the philosophy or the correct prescribing or the posology of homeopathy, then you're going to think that this stuff is poison and, you're going to badmouth homeopathy. So like having a sound basis and an understanding of why is your body responding that way, understanding the law of cure, understanding, just homeopathy on a deeper level. I agree.
Yes.
There's definitely the potential for some dodgy things happening, which is going to give homeopathy a bad name. I luckily don't think it's that big a thing, but the problem is that when these things happen, when it's with the type of person that might be a skeptic anyway, and they go to the media and blow things up out of proportion when they've used remedies incorrectly, there's always that potential going to be there. And of course, the pharmaceutical industry is one of the leading causes of death in the world, but yet they don't get pulled up. But with homeopathy, you need one bad feedback and then that's it. It's all over the papers.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And I think that of course, the homeopathic remedies are generally safe when applied according to homeopathic principles, so that we can stand by. And yet we can't say that they have an impact and say that they don't have any impact. You know what I'm saying? So we can't speak out of both sides of our mouth on this. We must say that it is a system and it is a systematic approach. And that is important to understand that when we apply a remedy, we need to know what to be looking for. And I think that's where the place that education plays in the process of using homeopathy. And it can be used safely at home as long as people know not to overuse. Yeah. So there are rules there, and it can be used according to certain trials or protocols as long, again, as it's not overused. But if we don't know what we're looking for, we don't know what response looks like, we don't know what overuse looks like, or I don't want to use all the technical, I mean, for sure the people on this podcast are going to know exactly what we're talking about, but always have to be thinking about how somebody who's just tuning in and doesn't know anything about homeopathy hears this. So they're safe when applied according to homeopathic principles. And I really just want to encourage people to understand the strengths and the limitations of kind of doing it yourself.
I really agree. I think luckily or unluckily, it usually tends to be more on the other way. I think the problem usually is that people don't give enough remedies, because the amount of conversations I've had with people where they've said, oh, I've given homeopathy for a fever or for a teething baby and it didn't work. And my first question is always, how many doses did you give? And they'll say, oh, I gave one remedy, but it didn't work. And I'm like, well, you need to give a little bit more than that. I feel like that's more the issue. Yeah.
Yes, a little bit more than that. A little bit more than that, right?
But that is the hardest part, don't you think? Like, I'm just thinking in our group of 1,000+ mums, many of them have been there for a very long time, but I can see they're still struggling with posology. Like, how much should I give? What potency? How often? When should I stop? Have I given enough? And that is that's a hard part, where if you're home prescribing by yourself, I don't know how you would really learn that unless you're part of a community or doing some professional study.
I mean, I don't know about you, but I'm in practice now 13 years, 12 years, and I meet once a week with a colleague. And these are the conversations we have. And she's been in practice longer than I, and we still have conversations about posology. So that never goes away. I think that is a continual evolution. But I will say we're both operating from that classical viewpoint, understanding laws of cure, understanding a couple different systems of looking at that, and are able to bounce those things off of those systems of understanding, but also clinical experience. And you can't replace that. There's no way around that. That's why I always say, I encourage people to experiment. And at the same time, after a little bit, after a few trials of something, call your homeopath. Call your homeopath, reach out to your practitioner, reach out to somebody who knows more, who's got more practice than you do, and then you can start to try something different.
I'm glad we've had this conversation. It's a really important one, and I think it's going to become an even more important conversation as the popularity of homeopathy is exploding since recent events. And if you look, for example, like Mary's homeopathy study group, which has been going for a little while, she had 40,000 members in that group when I checked last, which was a few months ago. I'm sure it's much more than that now. And you think of Paula Brown's Teach Me Health and Homeopathy Facebook group, it's got tens of thousands of people in there. So people are desperate to learn about homeopathy, and it's only going to become more and more and more. So making sure that we're doing that safe, and like you said, having a homeopath on call, like having that relationship with a homeopath. What would you say is the most important thing for a home prescriber to stay safe? I'm going to say making sure you have a relationship with a homeopath to fall on if things get messy. What would you say?
I would say have a homeopath that you can call when you're unsure where to turn next, what to try next. And I have a rule of thumb, which is try anything 3 times. If you try it 3 times in one day and you're not seeing any movement, it's probably not quite right. So you can try something else 3 times. And if nothing happens, try something else 3 times. But really, once after you're that rule of 3, be making a phone call or be trying something different. Don't keep hitting yourself with the same thing over and over and over again, because, you're not going to get anywhere probably if you didn't get somewhere already. So that's one thing I would say. And the other thing would be, start studying. I joined a study group. I know our school is working on a home prescriber curriculum and not one of our non-core classes. So we do offer some acute care prescribing courses, but we're working on something right now that is a little more fulsome, so that we, exactly as we were talking earlier, is a place for people who have done the study group, they've done some home prescribing, they've done some online learning, and they're really ready to dip their feet into a solid course that allows them to home prescribe, but isn't the full 4-year program, but could be applied to it if they really like it. So it's like a 9-credit course, if you will, that will allow them to then go, I really like this. Okay, I'm going to go all the way. Or they could walk away. They could walk away at that point too.
I think that's a really good option. And then hopefully there's some RPL, if once they do go onto the full course, that there's some sort of recognition for the work that they've already done in the
Of course.
prescriber's course.
Yeah, that's our goal.
Yeah, that would be amazing.
Yeah.
One of the emails I often get and private messages and comments is from people saying, I'm thinking of studying homeopathy. What would you say to somebody listening to this to kind of get them over the line, to help them come to that realization? Okay, yes, let's go ahead and do this. So for anyone listening to this thinking, I'm intrigued by homeopathy, I'm thinking about studying it, what would you say to them?
I would suggest they reach out to the schools, go to their websites, find out what kind of a program they offered. Of course, I'm partial to classical. I'm partial to this 4-year, blah, blah, blah. I'm impartial to accreditation. That said, though, I think reach out, have a person-to-person conversation with the person who represents that school and ask to sit in. I would ask to sit in, ask how you can sit in and watch a class, listen to a class. Can you come to a study group? Some schools will have study groups that are ongoing for their advanced students or their second-year students. Ask if you could sit on that. Ask if you could audit. Some schools allow auditing to a degree. So that's what I would say. I don't think there's really any way to replace that experience of dipping your toe in the water and really seeing what it's like to be online, to get a feel for the teachers, to get a feel of the school culture, and also just to get a sense of what is this really about to study. And the second thing I would do is to ask for an alumni's phone number and talk to them about what was it like to go through that program? How did you manage it with your lifestyle, your work, your children, whatever is going on in their life? And then how long did it take you to establish your practice? Find out what their graduation rate is, what their professional success rate is, how many people are practicing, and talk to those people who are practicing. Because I think that's a big question in a lot of people's mind is the feasibility of studying. Like, why am I studying? It's fine to study just to do it for yourself. That's totally legit. It's a legit transformation. It's 100% worth it. And a lot of people stop there, and that's okay. And there are a lot of people who want to do it as a profession, and they deserve to know ahead of time, is this going to be lucrative for me? And how long does it take? And the school should be able to connect them to all of that.
Is that something that you provide?
Yeah.
Yeah, really? Yeah. Great. Amazing.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, we share that with our prospective students. And we hook them up with an alumni so they can talk to them and say, what was it like for you? And it's been successful for us. It's a great enrollment technique because they feel they've got their hand held a little bit. The alumni has a relationship with the school. It's actually been a pretty heartfelt thing we've been doing the past couple of years.
That's beautiful. I love that. It's nothing like actually speaking to some real people that have been there and done that. And especially for the mums who, I've actually had quite a few men reach out and ask about studying homeopathy as well, which I'm really excited about. And I had a husband and wife reach out the other day and I'm like, yeah, go for it. That's amazing.
Yes.
Because we do need lots more male homeopaths as well. It definitely seems like a lot of the teachers are male, but a lot of the students are female. So we do need that nice balance of all cultures, all races, all beliefs, all religious backgrounds. We definitely need lots of everything so that we're just catering for, because at the end of the day, all about resonance. So finding that person out there that you resonate with, that's part of the healing process itself, I think.
Yeah, 100%.
Is there any final message that you want to leave our listeners with? And was there anything that you wanted to say about your own private practice?
I guess the only thing I would share about my private practice is, I'm thinking of people listening and what is it like to be a homeopath? And I guess just from this sole practitioner working in Minnesota, I want to share with people that 12 years ago, I was working in an office, seeing people only in person. Now I work 90% probably online and go into an office that I now share because none of us need it all the time. And I work with individuals, families, which is my favorite, meaning I love to work with, usually I'll start with somebody and then everybody else comes and then they send other family members to us and to me and to friends and stuff that they tell about. It's like everybody, I think everybody, it's word of mouth, right? But one thing I want to suggest that we've had the benefit of, because we have a pretty big community here in Minnesota of homeopaths, is it's a lonely profession. At times, if you work alone in your office or alone at home now, to really encourage people to develop and maintain like a cooperative of practitioners where you represent as a group, or you meet for case consult once a week or every other week, just to really encourage people to gain and build a community around themselves. This is to protect against compassion fatigue, which can happen in our business, but to enrich our lives personally, but professionally as well. That's been something I've had, and I can't imagine not having it.
Well, I have not had it, and then now that I have it, it's amazing, and I could never go without having that.
Never go back, right? Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Could you imagine all the physicians in the world working alone? It used to be that way. People go run around with their bag and go house to house.
Any final message you want to say about the college itself and how people can get hold of you?
So we can be reached, it's Northwestern Academy of Homeopathy. And so people can obviously just Google that. But our actual handle is homeopathictraining.org, online, www.homeopathictraining.org. And people can reach us through the contact form there. And our office coordinator will get right back to you and give you information about the school, put you in touch with an alumni so you can ask questions, invite you to sit in on a course, and send you the curriculum information. And then, of course, they can look at some of our non-core programming options and try out some of the acute care classes or some of the longer track programs that we're in the process of creating. But I wanted to say thank you to you for creating this forum and maintaining it and growing it, because it's just really exciting to me that here we are in Minnesota and they're like, hey, you know that podcast in Australia by you, Jenny? And I was like, oh yeah, I heard of that, but I don't really know much about it. And well, yeah, that one. Oh yeah. So I am blessed that your success has reached us here. So thank you for reaching out to us, because I know we've been around a long time, but we know it's really important for us to be and always reaching out and connecting to a broader audience in Australia. Oh, and shout out to my daughter's boyfriend who's from Brisbane. So.
Oh, really? Oh, well, hopefully he listens to the podcast. We had an interesting thing happen about 6 months into the podcast. I was a guest on Sue Mayer's podcast, Homeopathy for Mummies, and then she was a guest on my podcast. And then ever since then, our American listenership is double that of our Australian listenership. And the Aussies have never managed to caught up again. So yeah, we have predominant American listenership, followed by the Aussies, then UK, then Canada, then Ireland.
Oh, wonderful. Wow. Yeah, that's fantastic.
And I saw there's 2 people in South Korea as well and a couple in Russia. So it's reaching everywhere. Pakistan, there's quite a few, but there's quite a few homeopaths there anyway. So it's interesting seeing the statistics and see there's 1 person here, 2 people there, and all these odd places in the world. So
yeah. Well, we have graduates smattered all over. And I think the school's very proud of the fact that people have gone on to start their own schools. And, that's coming from us. And at the same time, we are always looking to really broaden our view, because I think we've been busy building this school and building this homeopathic community. And I'm really grateful. I guess my point is I'm really grateful to you for broadening the scope of homeopathy using your voice, your podcast, and your guests. So thank you for that.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Well, it's lovely to connect with you. I really appreciate it. And chat with you soon.
Okay. Take care.